Johannes Kepler, the music of the spheres. We're in 1571 and everyone is aware that the Earth was created by God, sits at the center of the universe, and everything rotates around it. Although this isn't the reason Moscow literally burns to the ground, leaving only the Kremlin standing. Or the reason for Spain winning a battle against the Turks at Lepanto, where the future writer named Cervantes would lose his right arm. In the midst of the fires and wars, Michelangelo Caravaggio is born, the undisputed master of light and shadows, who always portrayed himself as a gentleman or a muse in his self-portraits. Toward the end of the year, near Stuttgart, Germany, a premature baby is born. Sickly and barely surviving his first few days, Johannes Kepler was destined to revolutionize the world. Johann will observe the great comet of 1577 standing next to his mother at the tender age of 6, and a lunar eclipse standing next to his father at the age of 9. These two events must have left a deep impression. Studying mathematics in Tübingen, a young Kepler discovers Copernicus's heliocentric theory published 46 years earlier. Rome and the all-powerful Church would never be the same. According to heliocentrism, our Earth doesn't sit fixed at the center of the universe. It's our small, proud planet and the rest of the planets in the solar system that revolve around the sun. Kepler fell in love with this model and decided to prove it mathematically. In 1596, he published a book called The Cosmic Mystery that did exactly that. Johann sent copies of his book to the most brilliant minds of his time, among which was an Italian named Galileo who was busy designing and building the first space telescope. But it was a singular imperial astronomer, Tycho Brahe, who took an interest in the young Johann and offered him a position in his lab. Tycho was an eccentric man who had lost his nose in a duel, but he ran the best astronomy lab in all of Europe, and an enthusiastic Kepler immediately accepted the invitation. Tycho had collected precise data over a period of years, analyzing the position and movement of the planets across the night sky. This data would prove invaluable to Kepler for formulating his mathematical description of the heavens. But Tycho was so secretive that he had to see himself on death's door, probably from mercury poisoning, before opening his data up to Kepler. Tycho died, and Kepler finally had full access. Systematic measurements led Kepler to a series of conclusions of enormous transcendence for the scientific community. Kepler's 3 laws. He developed the first 2 in 1609. The first one states, all planets describe elliptic orbits around the Sun. The Sun sits at one of the focal points of that ellipse. According to the second, the radial vector sweeps equal areas in equal time. In other words, the planets move faster as they get closer to the Sun and slower as they move further away, so that in any given period of time, the area the planets covered in the ellipse was always the same. He needed more time for his third law. 9 years! In 1618, it was finally ready. It stated that the square of the orbital period of any given planet was directly proportional to the cube of the mean of its semi-major axis. What? If we compare all the planets by taking their average radius squared and dividing by their period cubed, we always get the same number. The third law is also called the harmonic law. Using the third law, we can calculate the time it takes each planet to travel once around the Sun without leaving the comfort of our living room. These laws are valid everywhere in our universe. 100 years later, Isaac Newton watched an apple fall and thanks to Kepler's laws was able to determine that an invisible force called gravity made all objects with mass attract each other. We know it as the universal law of gravitation, and it is the golden nugget Kepler's research and investigations led science to. My aim is to say that machinery of the heavens is not like a divine being, but like a clock. For many years, he was able to feed his family by reading the nobility's astrological charts, which permitted him a bit of sarcasm. Mother Astronomy would surely starve to death if it weren't for her daughter, Astrology. Kepler's own mother was accused of witchcraft by a neighbor. She was tortured and imprisoned. Kepler personally defended his mother at the trial. His father was a mercenary and spent much of his time traveling from war to war. One day, he simply did not come home. Kepler invented the word for an object that rotates around another: satellite. His book, Somnium Sive Astronomia Lunaris, tells the story of a voyage to the moon and is considered the first science fiction novel ever published. Kepler died in 1630 at the age of 59. 3 years later, Galileo Galilei will have to deny his beliefs to save his own life. Kepler has a crater on the moon named after him. NASA launched a space probe in 2009 to search for life in other solar systems, and they called it Kepler, of course.